Chung, artist and therapist from Buxton, on a really glorious sunny day actually. I've had a fantastic walk out first thing this morning with the dogs. It's been really lovely. So what am I here for today? Well, this is a second in my little series about artist mindset. And what I'm doing with this little series is basically talking to you about some ideas in the type of therapy that I do, which is called transactional analysis. And I'm making some links between the type of therapy that I do and my understanding of some of the processes that I think really important for artists. So I began last time by talking about what's called the ego state model, parent, adult, child. And I talked a little bit about parent, and I linked the parent process really, that's internal, part of personality, to the idea of the inner critic. And what I want to do this morning is talk to you about the second part of the model, which is the adult, and just talk about how that can be helpful, I think, in really supporting our artist mindset in terms of making really effective, authentic work. So here's the model. I'm just going to tweak the camera slightly just so that you can see it more clearly. Oh, and get a drink. One sec. That's better. Okay, back again. So this is a model that I drew up, it's probably about a week ago, I think now. And as I explained at the time, this is an idea that comes from Eric Berne in transactional analysis. And what he was talking about was the way in which he believed personality was structured. That there were three parts to the personality: a parent part, an adult part, and a child part. And each of those parts, which he called an ego state, is a consistent pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaviour. So each of these parts has got a pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaviour. So last time I talked about the parent and where that came from, and some ideas about how we can work with our own internal parent, our own internal critic, to really help ourselves as artists and to get a more positive mindset. This morning I'm going to talk about adult. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what Berne was thinking about when he was talking about adult, and in fact how we think about adult today in TA. So if we think about what do we mean by adult, well, what Berne was talking about here, or what the idea is about here, is that there's a part of us that is absolutely in the here and now, and it is absolutely made up of all of our resources as an adult. So that means, you know, our capacity to be able to think, feel and behave that in a way that's age appropriate. So I am in my 50s, so my adult ego state really is a 50-odd-year-old woman who is capable of thinking, feeling and behaving like a very resourceful adult 50-year-old woman. It means that we have all our capacity for reality testing, for problem solving, and which I think is really important for supporting ourselves emotionally and psychologically, for being able to be honest, open and relational with other people, that we are confident in our relationships with other people. So in lots of different ways, what we're talking about is being able to harness all of the resources that we have from our history, actually, and being able to use those effectively in support of ourselves. So as you can see, that the adult part of us is really important, and that we can access that freely. If we compare the adult and the here and now perspective with either parent or in fact child, both of which are not necessarily in the here and now. I'm going to talk more about child next week, but if we go back to parent and what I was saying about parent last time, so this is a part of us that we have taken in from other people. So in many respects, it is historical, it's not present-centred. So if we are using parent part of us, you know, something that we've taken in from a significant adult at some point along the way, then we're not necessarily going to have access to all of our adult resources, who we are now, to be able to respond in the present moment in a way which is appropriate to the present moment, and which may either solve the problem or enable us to be able to connect with somebody relationally in a way which is fitting really to the situation. So I think, you know, when we think about how adult might be useful for us as artists, there are about 3 or 4 different ways actually, and I'll just flip over the flip chart and talk to you about that. Okay, so how can adult help us as artists in our mindset? Well, I think there's 4 ways actually it can be really useful for us. The first one I think is about awareness. One of the things we think about in TA is, parts of self that are either in awareness or outside of awareness. So if I am in my studio and I'm working away on a painting and my inner critic starts to fire up because actually it's not going very well, but I'm not aware of the fact that actually this is historical part of me that comes from maybe an experience at school where, a kid or a teacher or somebody said something critical of the work that I was doing, then that's actually not very helpful for me. But I think when we can mobilise our adult on behalf of ourselves, we can notice that, I'm feeling that again. I'm noticing that there's a parent part of me, or my inner critic, is getting active. And it's getting active because, the work's not going very well and it's bouncing me back to that early experience. Well, I think that can be really useful because then we can dial down that voice. We don't have to listen to it, or we can think of a different way of perhaps giving ourselves feedback about the work that's actually happening. Okay, so I hope that's helpful in terms of, adult helps us bring things into our awareness. And as we bring things into our adult awareness, we're likely to feel and think and behave, thinking back to what we were saying about what adult is or what an ego state is, we're likely to think, feel and behave in a different way. Okay. The second way I think adult can be really useful for us, and in a way that's what I was talking about with that example, is that it can filter some of the parent messages. Now, not all of parent is negative. There's lots of things that will carry in the parent ego state that we'll have taken in from significant adults as we were growing up that were really useful. How to take care of ourselves, rules, boundaries, structures, how to be nurturing towards others, how to celebrate ourselves, how to regulate our feelings, lots of things like that. We'll have taken in from parental figures that are actually really helpful. However, of course, it's not always that simple. And there are some things that we've taken in that aren't helpful. And I think this is what the adult can be really useful for. As we notice that material starting to surface, we bring it into our awareness and then we can filter it. We can filter it through our adult and we can think to ourselves, like that example I gave you of my inner critic firing up when I'm doing a painting. We can notice that we are perhaps starting to get things really right, that actually, we're saying to ourselves quite, that voices start to go, this is no good, it's not good enough, it needs to be perfect, or I need to make it right, or, I need to do this, or it's not okay for me to be successful. All of the things that we repeat to ourselves. Well, I think in those moments, it's really useful for our adult to actually begin to filter that, to be able to question it, for us to use those resources that we've got in an age appropriate way, all resources we've got, in my case, being a 50-odd-year-old woman, and actually look at that message and go, hang on a minute, is that really useful for me? Is that helpful? Or can I update that? Can I filter that through a different way of thinking and attach something new to it? Yeah? So that's one of the ways in which I think adult can be really useful. Helps filter our parent, along with our awareness. So the third bit then is we've got options. I think having our adult and our capacity to be able to think and feel and behave as an adult, which is, of course, much broader than maybe we would have had if we'd taken parent material in for a parent, or when I then talk about child next week, what we might have done when we were children. We've got many more resources to be able to give us many more options. So we can think, feel and problem solve much more effectively because we are able to see more options than perhaps we would have done if we were a parent or child. Okay, so that's the third one. And the final bit is, and I'm going to talk more about this next time when I talk about child, but I think, I was talking about the positive way, the positive material that we have in parent. Sometimes we need to be able to support ourselves, we need to be able to nurture ourselves, take care of ourselves, deal with tough situations. We also need to be able to celebrate ourselves as well. And there's some of the ways in which I think, the adult can take material from parent and use it in a way which is really effective. And that, I think, could be supportive of both ourselves and also the child part of us. And I'll talk more about how child, perhaps, I think, can be supported and helped and nurtured when I speak next week. So I'll just recap, okay? So adult is a pattern of thinking, feeling and behaviour which is age appropriate, which is very much grounded in the here and now, and which uses all of our resources for things like problem solving and being in relationship, and to do it in a way that's really effective. And there are 4 ways I think that adult can be useful for us. One in which it helps us with our awareness in terms of thinking about material from the past and filtering it through our adult so that we can think and bring it up to date in a way which is useful. Adult gives us more options because we've got all of the resources available to us which are in the here and now, so we can think through and problem solve in ways which are more effective. And finally, I think it helps us in terms of supporting ourselves, particularly supporting child, but just generally supporting ourselves as well in being in having a more positive mindset. So that's a bit about adult, and that's from transactional analysis. So if that's useful for you, then yeah, please do drop me a message. I'll do something on child next week, so I hope to see you again then. Okay, cheers, and have a great day. All right, see you soon. Bye.